Hey, what's up, YouTube? This is EV Comics, and today I'm going to be giving my full thoughts on COMICSGATE as a movement, as well as the whole recent drama with Vonster, and that's basically why I'm making this video, because there are a lot of opinions that I've held that I've kind of just kept to myself because I don't want to start any arguments. I don't want to, get in arguments on Twitter as much as I can. I try to stay out of it. But in this situation, it's one of those where I feel like it's so blatantly the wrong choice. It's bothering. It's bothering. And I've tried to record this video 3 different times. This will be the third. And the reason why is because every time I think it can't get worse, it gets worse. And it's just been very interesting to see over the past 2 days how much worse, how much more of a hole EVS digs for himself here in this situation. And don't get it wrong, don't get me wrong, this entire situation is EVS's fault. It is entirely on him. And for what it's worth, I still find some sympathy as far as towards him because of his life situation. Obviously, taking care of a severely autistic girl, his daughter, is very difficult. And also his wife has Parkinson's. So I mean, there's a lot going on with him. He's dealt with a lot as far as cancel culture goes, when that was in full swing back in the mid 2010s, mid to late 2010s, whenever COMICSGATE kind of started as this whole thing. And look, when it started, the idea was just this. The idea was that we were going to make good comics and leave political messaging, modern political messaging out of it, which is what a lot of people want. A lot of people can get behind it. Now, there was a lot of bad actors that made the movement look worse than it is. There's a lot of people who have scammed, a lot of people who have been exposed to be not necessarily grifters, not all of them. Some of them are grifters, yes. Those are the true scammers. But a lot of them just kind of use the movement or the ideals of the movement to try and make money. You got people like JDA, which is a total AI fraud at this point, that just basically uses the culture war as his way of making sales. But overall, the movement was basically supposed to be creating comics, right? Creating good comics and just having a fun time with it. And there's a lot of people from that were previously in the industry, like Marvel and DC and Image and all that kind of stuff, that were involved with this, and they came together to do this. They basically formed this group to make the things that Marvel and DC weren't making anymore. Now, don't get me wrong, Marvel and DC is still making decent comics. Obviously, the Absolute series with Batman has been taken off pretty well. I haven't read it yet, but I have seen that people seem to be liking it, so I can't say that they're not making good material. The argument is that back in the 2010s, that the material was starting to take a hit because of all the forced political ideology that was being shoved down every superhero's throats, and thus the audience's throats. And people don't like that. People want stories to just be stories, and especially with comic books, which are largely, supposed to be apolitical anyway. Largely supposed to be just fun adventures for kids a lot of times. It just doesn't really make sense. It just doesn't really make sense to do that. And COMICSGATE was supposed to be the answer to it. And what ends up happening now, my honest thoughts on it is that the movement has sort of lost its way, I think. Because last year, and this is one of the things that stuck out to me, there was a Trump cover variant for Cyberfrog, which is okay, I guess we're no longer being apolitical anymore with our comics. Obviously, everyone knows EVS's stances on politics. That's his own personal thing. He can do that. But as far as the comics go, they're supposed to be apolitical. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And what you get now in a lot of comics that are coming out of COMICSGATE these days, they are very much right-wing. And I have a problem with that, because that's not what we were supposed to be doing here. That's not what the goal was supposed to be, right? That's not what comic creators were supposed to be aspiring to do. We're supposed to make good stories. And if you are forcing your political agenda into it, it's just as bad as forcing leftist political agendas in it. There's no difference. The same concept is being applied, and it's ruining the comic for half of the audience. Which is why I think it's bad and why I don't do that in Lil Miss Steel. But what ends up happening here, I think, also, is that along the way, COMICSGATE became more DramaGate, and nothing has proven that more than EVS himself from what he said in the past couple of days. Now, I'm going to summarize the whole thing with Vaughn real quick before I look at these tweets, but I'm going to summarize the event. Vaughn and someone named Liam Gray, who's another COMICSGATE king, have been having beef for a while now. For a while. And Liam basically gets a beef with everyone, essentially. He just he can't help himself. He's constantly escalating stuff. And I watched Van Sciver's stream on Thanksgiving just to give him the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, maybe this guy can explain himself. Maybe there's a good reasoning for it, you know. Maybe there's something I can learn instead of just taking everything from Vaughn's side. I want to hear it from Van Sciver's side, too. And you know, I want to hear this. I want to hear this. And essentially what his reasoning is because he's around autism a lot, not just with his daughter, but with his daughter's school, and basically everyone in the comics industry has a little bit of autism, all right? I'm throwing myself into that one, all right? Everyone's a little autistic in the comic book industry, okay? But the point is, jokes aside, the point is that Van Sciver is around autism a lot, and he says that Liam Gray probably also has autism, probably has some form of it that causes him to be unable to de-escalate a situation or walk away from a situation that he wants to start an argument with. And because of that, he can't be held accountable for what he does. Now that is cap, because in a vacuum, yes. In a vacuum, if someone cannot help themselves as a mental condition, obviously we need to treat them a little bit differently than a person who is fully accountable for themselves without mental conditions, right? But a couple things here. One, we don't know if the guy has autism. There's absolutely no evidence of this whatsoever. He's probably got some kind of mental illness, but I don't know if it's autism. I'll tell you the mental illness that everyone has in COMICSGATE, and that's Twitter. Twitter is the mental illness that everyone in COMICSGATE is diagnosed with. But and not just COMICSGATE, it's just comics in general, it seems. But the thing is that we don't even know if that's true. That's just what EVS says. That's just what he thinks. Which, you know what? Fine. Okay. You know what? I can take his experience to mean a little bit more than me saying it, because he's more, you know, involved with it. Okay, fine. Let's say that's the case. You still don't platform the guy who's constantly being an ass to everyone that he knows. Constantly. There's no reason to give this guy a mic every single time you stream with other comic creators. There's no reason to do this. And judging by, if I go and search up, let's see, COMICSGATE drama. Let me open his stuff in a new tab. I pressed control, but it didn't open in a new tab. Great, I love that. Here's the vote here. 36.4% say keep Vaughn, Jettison, Liam. 37% say jettison both. Now, keep in mind that this poll came after Vaughn already admitted that he was just going to leave COMICSGATE after this whole debacle anyway. So the numbers might even be skewed from there. But just looking at these numbers, it is in favor that people want Liam gone more than they want Vaughn gone. Now, the majority, by a slim margin, 37%, say both of them should leave. Which, you know what? Fair. That's what people have voted. That's what people have voted. Okay. But there are still a lot more votes to keep Vaughn than to keep Liam. And it seems like the community at large don't like Liam. But you know who does like Liam? EVS. For some reason, EVS loves Liam. And maybe it's because he's sympathetic towards the guy because he thinks he has autism. That's fine. Empathy is good. Totally fine with that. I don't have an issue with it whatsoever. What I do have an issue with is to platform someone like this, to give him a mic, to continue to get into fights, to continue to harass people like this. You are accountable for that. You are accountable for that. Sorry, I'm still sick. My throat is still just, ugh. But you are accountable for that. because you are constantly putting him out here with a megaphone as opposed to just him being off in his own little world on Twitter on his own account, right? A friend who has a friend like this, a friend like Liam, as a friend, you should try and make that person avoid Twitter and conflict starting at all cost. And by giving him a platform to speak on, to constantly get into beef with people, you are not helping him. You are doing the exact opposite. You are feeding his problem. And now that he's been kicked, I hope that maybe Liam can stop doing this. Maybe by some miracle that he can do this. That he can better himself. But the damage is done. Vonster has also been kicked from the group because, from EBS's words, Vonster constantly complained about Liam. My question is, why shouldn't he complain about Liam? Because everyone, it seems, the majority of people in the community complain about Liam. Even with that poll result saying kick both of them, that's still including Liam. People do not like him. And this is from a guy's poll that's like separate from Van Sciver. This is COMICSGATE drama, which tends to typically side with Van Sciver, right? He's not so biased, which I appreciate. I appreciate the lack of an obvious bias, but the community at large does not like Liam. So why keep him around? Why keep him around, right? Well, let's go ahead and go through these comments here. So Vonster says, when you lie to cover for liars, you become just like them, someone I can't take seriously. If you're done with the lies and insanity, you just want truth and the best comics, I'm your man. That will be my goal going forward. Now, this is where I get on Vonster a little bit here. You are not safe either from this, because my criticism for Vonster is that I think you should also use Twitter less. I think all of us should use Twitter less, especially whenever you're doing stuff like this, which is side remarks, not pointing out the person you're talking about in a Facebook type of drama way. It's not good. You're just feeding into what Van Sciver wants you to do. You are becoming the source of drama that he can make comments about in his stream. And his stream is very important to him, and this has been my opinion for a long time, is that Van Sciver is obviously more of a drama Twitch streamer than a comic creator at this point. The Twitch streams and stuff is how he makes his money consistently. The comics make him a good amount of money, don't get me wrong. Rainbow got him like over 500,000 in just 2020 alone. He made the goal, and now it's climbed up to 500,000, right? 2020, by the way, the comic's still not out. Anyway, the next thing I want to talk about here is my comment here. Now, I'm a nobody, and this was before I got the verified account. The verified thing was $1 for this month because they're doing some kind of a special Black Friday deal or whatever. So I was like, you know what, screw it, I'll get $1. I made this post before I got the verified thing. Keep in mind, I'm a nobody. I don't mean anything to anyone in the comic space. I'm just a dude drawing my silly little cartoony comic thing that doesn't have near as much detail as like these other guys here that can afford to put all the time and effort into of their life into making these comics look like this, right? I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy who's making a silly little comic that people enjoy, and I thank you all for enjoying that. And this comic got 21 likes compared to Van Sciver's, which got 31. Now that's 2/3, essentially. That's 2/3 of the same amount of likes as Van Sciver, which is pretty significant whenever you consider, again, I'm a nobody and that's Van Sciver. So people seem to be agreeing with me here is what I'm saying. Now, Van Sciver quote tweeted this and said, I don't excuse any of Liam's actions. He's been kicked from the room, same as Vaughn. Well, if you kicked Liam from the group, why did you kick Vaughn? Because the only reason that Vaughn wasn't participating, as you say, is because Liam is participating. And Vaughn knows that if he gets on a call or even in a chat with Liam in it, Liam's going to start beef with him because that's how Liam works. Because you have platformed Liam to be able to do this constantly. So why would Vonster ever get involved? Why would he? There's no point. There's no point because he knows every single time he joins is going to be an argument. That's why he talks trash about Liam. That's why he doesn't get involved, because Liam is constantly there to get involved with him in a negative light. So, going on to the next comment here, he's saying he doesn't excuse any of Liam's actions. You told Vaughn not to get into pointless and endless fights with Liam. Well, the problem is you're letting Liam get in pointless fights with him by keeping him on the group. And you said that for Vaughn's sake, not Liam's. Not true. It should be for Liam's sake. If you're his friend, you should actually, prevent him from getting in these fights by not giving him a platform to get in the fights in the first place, right? Anyway, talking about how he's having a retard fight with him or whatever and all that kind of stuff. And look, I agree that maybe Vaughn could benefit from staying off of Twitter just like all of us. I agree that that's true. But that still does not excuse the fact that you are putting Liam in this position where he can constantly get in arguments with Vonster. Vonster is most of the time just defending himself for the most part. And Liam is just constantly in attack mode. So what ends up happening here is this guy says it's been a pretty frustrating arc, which is hilarious. We're talking about this like an anime. Kind of hope Liam loses internet access or something so he can stop plaguing us. It's like having to walk by the same schizophrenic homeless guy every day. Exactly. Why would you walk down the same road that you know there's a schizophrenic homeless guy who's going to harass you every time you walk down that road when you can walk down the other road, right? You might lose the 10 out of 10 donut shop that's on the same road as that guy. You might pass that, but at least you're still in proximity to it so that maybe you can at least sneak by another way and get to the donut shop. The donut shop in my allegory here is the COMICSGATE Kings group. But anyway, the support that you get from that, right? And then Skyver says it'd be a really great idea if people recognize him as such and not deal with him at all. That's all I'm asking. The problem is that Liam is constantly dealing with them, and you are letting him do it by making him part of the COMICSGATE Kings group, right? And then I reply, it would be easy to ignore Liam if you haven't platformed him for so long. Skyver says, I can't help it. He's a likable fellow, and he's good on YouTube. Likable fellow. I'm not even gonna try to debate that. But then he says good on YouTube. Now that's interesting. That's interesting because we come to this point where I say he's not likable to 90% of your followers, which is true by the poll results that we saw. But thanks for confirming it's all about the YouTube views. And then he says, why wouldn't it be about the YouTube views? It's YouTube. And that just basically confirms everything that I've already had the belief about Van Skyver about for a while now. For years at this point, is that everything is just he's just views, man. He doesn't care about the comics anymore. He cares about the views. He cares about the drama that he can constantly whip up and farm for views and donations and stuff on streams. I mean, this guy basically, it's in his best incentive to start drama and to continue to farm it like this. And for this guy to be like the figurehead of the movement, I think is a very, very bad thing. Because if this is the guy who's leading the movement, then the movement is dead, in my opinion. And it's sad to me. It's sad to me because he claims to be Liam's friend, and yet he is admitting to basically using Liam for YouTube views. That is what he's doing. He is admitting to using him for views, even though he knows it's bad for him to be on the internet. It's bad for him to be in this position where he can make arguments with people every single day for no reason. It's bad for him to be in the group chat and the call because there's people that he has beef with, because who does he not have beef with, that will constantly try to avoid him and thus not join the call, aka Vonster. And despite all of that, despite knowing all of this, because he's good for YouTube views, guess what? He's in. And that is a integrity problem. That is a greed problem. And I understand that, again, with your family situation, Van Skyver, it is in his best interest to do this. It is in his best interest to make this money. So while I understand the incentive to do it, while I understand and sympathize with his life situation, it does not excuse bad behavior like this. It does not excuse platforming a person so annoying, so constantly just a nuisance to everyone he meets. It is not worth doing this and ruining your potential connections to other people who are making great art. Monsters comics are some of the best that I've read in recent years. And I'm not just saying that. I've said this before when I did my review all the way back on this, way before the drama started. I've said that this was one of the best indie comics I've ever reviewed. And I still think it's the best. It's still my favorite so far. And that's after reading Monster MD. I still think Terror in the Trenches is my favorite. And what ends up happening is you are not just losing Vonster, you're losing a good creator who is good at fulfillment as well, much faster at it than you by meaning Van Sciver. You are losing the actual quality creator and all the potential crossover and promotion and just the community cohesion. You're losing all of that for the sake of Liam. And no, getting rid of him and Vaughn does not fix the problem, because you have still lost Vaughn and all of the people that are in his camp. You have still sown division over Liam, even in this final act. And I say final with quotes because I know in a matter of maybe a month or two, Liam's going to be back on the stream. And it's not going to change. Nothing's going to change. I know that's probably going to happen. And it's frustrating to me. It's very frustrating to me. If you put two people in COMICSGATE, any two people, and put them in a room, one of them eventually will kill the other. And this is because not a single person can get along. There's a lot of egos when it comes to this group. There's a lot of inability to admit that you're wrong. And there's a lot of just doubling down. You would never see Van Sciver apologize to Vaughn. You would never see that happen. You would never see him apologize to anyone for letting Liam on the stream for so long and propping him up to continue to harass people like this. It's very shameful. It's very shameful. And I'm sad that it's come to this. And I'll end the video with this kind of somber thought as well. As much as I think that the better quality of comics is in COMICSGATE and in this side of the internet, I think the quality is here. I think the storytelling is here and the artwork is here. I have always kind of held the opinion that it's still possible that the Rippaverse might just outlast them anyway. Simply because, for the most part, the people in the Rippaverse keep their head down and don't get in drama with other creators. Sure, Chuck Dixon runs his mouth quite a bit with just anyone. Not just creators, but with a lot of people. He likes to stir the pot. Sure, Eric July gets in drama with people every now and then. But for the most part, they are quieter. For the most part, they are not engaging with the drama nearly as much directly with the people that they know are farming them for content. They do not interact with them. And like I said, if everyone could just stay off Twitter a little bit more and just not participate in arguments on Twitter all the time. If we could do that, the actual point of the whole movement that was started to create better comics, that whole point could be so much better executed on. It could be so much better of a community if people just did that. But from Van Sciver himself, the point of the movement is now just YouTube views. That is the main priority. I mean, he didn't even mention comics until I brought it up here, where I said supposed to be making good comics with other talented creators, even if we don't agree on every little thing. And then he said, it's that too. Oh, you had to say it's that too after I bring it up. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's just, look, I'm not going to call a guy a fraud. I'm not even going to call him a grifter because he does deliver the comics. They're just late. I'm not going to say that he's anything like that. I'm not going to call him a scammer or anything. But he is just a drama farmer, and he's cultivated a community that is constantly, being harassed by this bad actor in the group, Liam, and just constantly being afraid that he's going to go off on another tangent and just you have to it's like you're walking on glass everywhere you go whenever you're involved with a guy like that in the group, and it's not fun. Eventually you just want to stay out of the group. Everyone can relate to this, either a coworker, a family member at the Thanksgiving table. You had to dance around topics very carefully to not bring up anything that would trigger the one guy who will go off on a tangent and then start fighting people, literally threatening to fist fight and headbutt people. That is from Liam's mouth himself. It is better to just ostracize that person. It is better to just do that than to invite them to the group and make everyone uncomfortable. And unfortunately, Van Sciver would rather have YouTube views than have a better community. And I think that says a lot about him as a person. I think that says a lot about COMICSGATE as a movement. And I think everyone who's okay with his decision to kick Vaughn and Liam, without warning, by the way, without any communication, I think if you're siding with him on that, I think you are also part of the problem. I think you are also okay with cultivating a community that is all about drama and YouTube views and donations on streams instead of actually the point of the movement, which is to make good comics. That's what it's supposed to be about. And as long as I live, as long as I'm making comics, I'm going to try and make it the best I can. I'm always trying to learn and get better. Every comic looks better than the last. I'm always trying to get better and better and better, and that comes with time. And as time progresses, I hope you will continue to enjoy Lil Miss Steel. The views have been really good recently. It keeps going up, man. It's been so great to see the people who buy it locally at events that I sell it at. Huge shout out to you guys. You guys are helping me do this and actually make money off of this, which is something I didn't think I would ever really do. And you mean the world to me. You mean the world to me. All of you do. So thanks so much for watching. Stick around for more content, more comics, and comic reviews, as well as just some other little stuff. So till next time, peace out.